I'm just Nick, and this is the Earthquaker Devices Rainbow Machine. Sorry, that was a little bit excessive, I guess. Look, I'm just going to put this out there. A lot of us like to, at least some of the time, make music that's fucked up. And when it comes to making music that's kind of fucked up in an ugly way, which is to say fugly, it's not really that hard to do. It's something that we have a sort of familiarity with, you know. Throw some tritones into something, or, you know, get some intermodulating distortion happening and some, you know, inharmonic intervals within, you know, a very sort of grating timbre. Rip a speaker. Easy, right? Ugliness, edge, dissonance, and things that go beyond just simple dissonance in the harmonic sense. But some of us also like to attempt, sometimes, to make music that's fucked up in a pretty way, which is to say, pugly music, right? This pedal's all about the pugly. In fact, I'd venture to say it's a powerful tool for pugliness. I don't know how else to put it. For one thing, it's the only pedal that I've ever heard compared on the interwebs to unicorn ejaculate. Not that I ever did a Google search on unicorn ejaculate. I just happened to stumble across that descriptor used in conjunction with this pedal, and it was used in the best possible way. That descriptor, I confess, got me a little bit interested, and now I see that this is a profoundly unique and profoundly expressive pedal. It is a pedal that messes with the pitch domain, and as such it's kind of a modulation pedal. But it also messes with the time domain because it shifts the speed of these modulations that are happening in various interesting ways. I think the best way to get a grip on what this pedal is actually doing is to go through the controls. As tedious as that may seem, we're going to try and make it painless. These three knobs across the top deal with how the pedal shifts pitch. The middle one determines what the interval of the pitch shift is going to be. If it is completely upright, it does not shift the pitch. It creates a unison. If I shift it slightly off, it begins to shift the pitch just slightly off the fundamental, or off the initial, or the input pitch. Okay. If I go full counterclockwise, it shifts a fourth down. Whoa, that was cool. If I go full clockwise, it shifts a third up. You can control that knob with an expression pedal. I'm not going to do it here because I don't think you could handle it. But just know that full range of pitch shift is available to you dynamically. You can control it. Let's go back to just slightly off of unison. These two knobs control two separate pitch shifted signals. The primary one is just shifted in whichever direction, you know, and to whatever degree you set here, and this is controlling how much of it you hear. Let's turn off the secondary one for a second. So now we have the clean signal, and we are adding in one of the pitch shifted signals. Guess what? A beautiful flangey, phasey, slightly subtle, chorusy type effect available. Lots of sort of less edgy sounds available in this pedal. I'm going to shift us further so that we can hear better. So we've shifted this primary signal down a fourth. This secondary knob works a little bit differently. In half of its rotation, it shifts one way. You have to have the primary up for the secondary to work. It's shifting down. In the second half of its rotation, risk of engaging too much detail here, I'm going to say that this controls the direction of the shift of a second pitch shifted signal and also the degree to which you hear it. How about that? For more detailed explanation, read the instructions on the website. So that's only part of the fun, because down here we have control over the tone of the shifted pitches, from very bright to very dark. For a thicker sound. And rolling off that transient, or rolling off the high end that allows you to hear that transient, enables you to actually use some very dissonant textures in ways that are still kind of musically viable even in like a more conventional situation. When you have a dissonant interval that's really bright, it kind of pops out in a different way, which may be what you want, from how it is if you roll off some of that high end, and it's more like a kind of droney texture underneath. So this tone knob enables you to use some very extreme pitch shifting in very subtle ways or less extreme ways. And then you have this wonderful tracking knob. The tracking knob basically determines the time interval between your initial note and when the pitch shifting kicks in. So when it's turned all the way counterclockwise, it's pretty much immediately after the note. But when you turn it full clockwise, I had it backwards. There's a lot going on here. It's blowing my mind. Turn it full clockwise, the pitch shift is quite immediate. Turn it full counterclockwise, there's a bit of an interval of time. So you hear the almost arpeggiated effect of the two additional pitches kicking in. Am I boring you? I hope not. I'm certainly amusing myself. So it's kind of almost simultaneous at full clockwise. kind of arpeggiated at full counterclockwise. And in the middle, kind of in the middle. Quick arpeggiation. We're not done yet. We have the magic knob. The magic knob only works or has an effect when the magic switch is stepped on. The switch is going to make a little pop. That's normal, and it's clearly described as normal in the instructions, and it's because you are rendering a shock to the Rainbow Machine system, but it is a salutary shock because it will result in greater magic. It introduces an additional modulation, regeneration, feedback thing that you can adjust. Let's go to maximum magic. So the combination of being able to control the sort of speed of arpeggiation, for lack of a better term, and also the way in which this thing regenerates over time, enable you to create modulation effects that also have a significant rhythmic or time component to them. And that is really where this pedal becomes unique and useful in just all kinds of crazy ways. I mean, you can create kind of sampled textures and synthy textures and the types of things that you associate with an analog synth, and yet the sort of basic sonic textures are very guitaristic. Your sound, your strings, your hands, it's all coming through in spite of all this bizarre processing. Little less magic, please. And I want to emphasize that this pedal can be used in extremely subtle ways as well, simply by rolling back the amount of pitch shifted tone that we're going to be able to hear. That makes our initial tone much more present. Or by shifting the pitch to be much closer to unison, so we have more of a standard type of modulation. We can go from a fairly conventional type of sound and use the magic knob to introduce this additional sort of layer of modulation. This modulation carries on kind of in the background or under our notes has a very strange delay-like quality. It creates an ambience, which is really bizarre because it's not actually a delay. I don't have any reverb happening on my amp. I don't have any delay happening on my amp. It's all coming out of the pedal. chord yet? Probably. Roll back your tone or your volume knob, and you know there's still stuff happening. Let's try some really dark tones. I rolled my tone knob way back. Sorry, at this point I'm wanking. I'm aware of it. It's hard not to. Hopefully you've tuned out by now, but if you haven't, I'll just say that this is one of very few pedals that one experiences that one can actually play the pedal, that you really feel that there's enough dynamic interaction going on between you as the player and the processing that's happening in the device that you really can kind of use it in a very expressive and dynamic way as you play. I overuse the terms expressive and dynamic, but I could not possibly overuse them in this case. Get a hold of the folks at Rock and Roll Vintage. Hook yourself up with a rainbow machine. Try not to think about unicorn ejaculate. And until next time.